The woman suddenly felt unwell, and a large lump formed behind her neck, and a mysterious creature crawled out from it.
Oh my god!
This is a spaceship carrying the burden of the Earth. At this moment, the astronauts are facing a huge danger of death. Everyone is infected with an alien virus. Where did this virus come from? Why can it hide inside the astronauts' bodies? The story begins with an alien spacecraft.
10 times that. It was a flying football stadium.
An unidentified flying object suddenly appeared in the sky above the city. Its appearance was full of technological sophistication, and its mode of operation was extremely unique. It was clearly not a product of the Earth. This spectacle attracted people to stop and watch. It flew slowly overhead, and then landed in a plane. A swirl of sand was raised around it. Then, the spaceship quickly rooted and grew, forming numerous crystalline structures. These crystals seemed to follow a certain pattern. Scientists conducted in-depth analysis. They discovered that these crystalline structures were transmitting signals into space. The destination of the signal was Canis Major, which is located 1 billion light-years away from Earth. To investigate the purpose of this alien spaceship, the government dispatched a spacecraft to make contact with the extraterrestrials in Canis Major. They hoped to understand the true intentions of the aliens through peaceful negotiations. However, before the spacecraft reached Canis Major, Captain Nico was forcibly awakened by the artificial intelligence. William. She quickly summoned William and asked why she was awakened. William provided the reason. The spaceship had deviated from its intended course, for it misguided by light refracted by dark matter. At this moment, the path ahead was blocked by a mass of dark matter. William didn't know how to make a decision, so he woke up Nico. Nico decided to wake up more people and make a decision after discussing with everyone. They carried the hopes of 8 billion people on Earth. Any risk could lead to destruction. Immediately, Nico woke up the members of the first team. After discussing among themselves, Nico decided to utilize the inertia of Sirius to accelerate through this region of dark matter. The first contact between humans and aliens was about to unfold in the universe. Just as the spacecraft entered the orbit of Sirius, it encountered the impact of a stellar storm. The spacecraft began to shake violently. Former Captain Ian thought it was just a minor issue. However, the spacecraft was hit by even stronger tremors. For the safety of all the team members, Nico decided to abandon this journey. But Ian disagreed. He thought Nico was too conservative. Changing the course again would add several more months to the journey. Yet, new tremors struck again. Several people fell to the ground. Under Nico's command, William drove the spaceship out of orbit, but the journey was extended by an additional 7 months. After this incident, Ian no longer wanted to be subordinate. That day, he attacked Nico in the hibernation chamber. Ian intended to forcibly remove her from the position of captain. Ian also called for assistance, because Nico was the new captain. The rest of the team members did not support her either. Ian issued the order to attack. Yet, Nico struck first, and knocked down one person. Then, she kicked Ian away. Ian launched a surprise attack from behind. Nico was injected with a sedative. Nico fell into a deep sleep. Afterward, she was forcibly placed in a hibernation pod. Ian called everyone, announcing himself as the new captain, first convincing the others to obey his commands, then threatening William to obey him. Under Ian's orders, the spacecraft returned to Sirius and activated the protective shield, preparing to utilize the slingshot effect to accelerate the spaceship and launch it. At this moment, the spacecraft was influenced by dark matter gravity, quickly entering the gravitational field orbit. However, shortly after, a dark matter celestial body erupted with a Class C flare. William immediately warned the spacecraft needed to change its course, but Ian disagreed. It turned out, Ian underestimated the power of the flare. Being hit by the flare once resulted in severe turbulence. Ian ordered to activate the hyperspace travel. However, at this moment, the deputy came to report. To resist the flare, all the energy of the thrusters was used to reinforce the shield. Shortly after, the flare hit the spacecraft for the second time. The thrusters were completely destroyed. And then William reported the shield had malfunctioned. At the same time, the energy of the thrusters was depleted. At this moment, the ship hull shook violently again. One of the ship's devices started to explode. The spaceship was about to disintegrate in outer space. The team members awakened the sleeping Nico, but the sudden explosion caused both of them to fall to the ground. Nico went to the control room. She would settle accounts with Ian later. At this moment, the oxygen on the spaceship burned and escaped into outer space. while hydrogen gas was also leaking. If the two gases come into contact, the spaceship would immediately explode. Therefore, Nico ordered to vent the hydrogen gas tanks, restart the spaceship systems, and then move away from Sirius. After completing these tasks, she commanded the team members Javier and Bernie to restrain Ian. Javier quickly subdued Ian. However, at this moment, the spaceship was still in danger. Nico rushed to the observation deck. She activated the manual control system. She was determined to lead the spaceship through this crisis. Her gaze was firm and resolute. She knew, only by relying on her own wisdom and courage, could she lead everyone to safety. Nico steered the spaceship towards Sirius, utilizing the energy of the flare, broke free from the orbit of Sirius. Nico succeeded. Meanwhile, the crystalline substance on Earth finally showed some activity. Music unexpectedly started playing. Scientist Eric finally understood. The aliens were using low-frequency sound waves for signal transmission. After the crisis, Nico intended to spare Ian, but Ian had murderous intentions. He planned to secretly attack. Ian died like this. Nico informed everyone about Ian's death. At this moment, the spaceship's oxygen storage module malfunctioned. Oxygen started leaking. At this time, the oxygen inside the cabin became increasingly thin. Team member Yorkshire collapsed on the floor, and there were only 5 hours left until oxygen depletion. Team member August suggested they could solve the issue by electrolyzing ice into hydrogen and oxygen. Nico immediately gave the order to search for a nearby water-bearing planet. However, after searching, they didn't find a suitable planet. Everyone fell into a desperate situation. Michelle thought of a gravitational lens. It involved searching for light waves in front of star-like objects. If there were light points, it could potentially be a planet. But if not, then they only had a dead end. William followed this method and found 8 planets, but none were suitable. Finally, through William's relentless efforts, they found a planet that met the requirements. Fortunately, this planet had its own atmosphere. Nico dispatched a shuttle to fly towards this planet. Several team members successfully landed on this planet. The water on this planet had disappeared billions of years ago, but due to the lack of water, a mineral called Lindwood crystal had formed here. It contained a significant amount of nitrogen and oxygen. It could serve as an emergency resource. Nico decided to split the team into 2. One team went to inspect and repair the spaceship. The other team went to search for this mineral. While searching, they discovered a cave. They ventured deep into the cave. They found Lindwood crystal inside. The team members started mining immediately. The oxygen exhaled by August caused her goggles to fog up. She took out an instrument to analyze the composition of the surrounding atmosphere. She discovered there was actually oxygen in the cave, so she directly opened her protective mask. This frightened Oliver next to her. He loudly asked her what she was doing. August told him the oxygen concentration here was high. They could breathe directly. After seeing the analysis, Oliver also opened his protective mask. What they didn't know was, although their bodies were functioning normally now, but little did they know that this action would torment them in the future. Another team member was preparing to transport the collected minerals back to the spaceship. He instructed the 2 not to remove their masks, as they needed to stay here to continue mining the minerals. At this moment, Javier, who was repairing the spaceship's hull outside, saw a sight that shocked him immensely.
Holy shit. Nico, are you guys reading me?
A red moon appeared in the distance. On Earth, the moon's gravity affects the tides, but this planet's surface had no water. The gravitational pull of the red moon directly affected the surface, resulting in intense geological changes. Magma was about to erupt from the ground. Nico ordered everyone to retreat. Javier and the other person immediately packed their things and ran towards the spaceship, but there were still 2 people in the mining cave. Meanwhile, there were only 9 minutes left before the volcanic storm would hit the spaceship. After analyzing the situation, William believed the odds were against them. Leaving now was the best option. August and the other person emerged from the cave. They looked up. Magma raged in the distance, with flames reaching the sky. August attempted to call the salver, but there was no response. Oliver looked up and saw the spaceship had already taken off. They only realized at that moment that they might have been abandoned. As Oliver complained, he was struck by a flying rock and fell to the ground. Just as the 2 lost hope, Nico piloted the spaceship and arrived here. The 2 immediately brought the collected minerals and struggled to board the spaceship. At the moment of disaster, the spaceship successfully took off. In the end, with Nico's superb skills and extraordinary courage, they escaped from this doomsday planet. All three of them smiled. After undergoing ultraviolet disinfection, they returned to the spaceship. Nico received a warm welcome from everyone. The team members applauded and cheered for him. As Nico walked alone in the spaceship corridor, he suddenly felt anxious, and his palms began to tremble. Meanwhile, the crystalline object on Earth continued playing music. The scientists didn't gain any valuable clues. When the research on extraterrestrials reached a stalemate, Eric suddenly realized that aliens transmitted information in a negative waveform. Humans just needed to find the unheard content. On the other side, several team members were discussing the next steps for negotiating with the extraterrestrials. Unexpectedly, female team member Petra suddenly felt intense discomfort. She pushed away her teammate. Under the gaze of everyone, an astonishing mutation occurred. Everyone hurriedly took Petra to the medical room for isolation and treatment, but Dr. Zane was helpless, as her stress hormones were abnormally high. Unexpectedly, the woman requested everyone to throw her out of the spaceship. Subsequently, everyone realized she might have been infected by an extraterrestrial organism. The team members became anxious. At this moment, Michelle started accusing Bernie. She believed the virus came from the soil sample Bernie brought back, but Bernie defended himself. He had disinfected everything he brought back. The two of them argued. Nico immediately intervened to stop them. Then she went back to take a short nap. Suddenly, she was awakened by the shaking of the spaceship. Nico went to the control room. It turned out that there were many meteor fragments ahead of the spaceship, but the spaceship's sensors were damaged. They could only rely on their eyes to navigate through the debris field. Nico immediately decided to manually control the spaceship. Several team members secured themselves in their chairs. Once ready, Nico began piloting the spaceship. Nevertheless, they still collided with some small fragments. Nico carefully maneuvered around the enormous meteor above them. Although Nico was cautious enough, the spaceship had no protective shield. It was hit by meteorites once again. Just as Nico was preparing to continue forward, a huge meteorite appeared ahead. Fortunately, the co-pilot, Cass, reminded her in time, and they managed to avoid it. But Nico didn't see that meteorite at all. She immediately called Cass to take over her position and left the cockpit. Under the questioning of team member Michelle, Nico revealed that she suddenly became blind. Dr. Zane examined her eyes. The result showed elevated stress hormones, exactly like Petra, who fell ill. Perceptive Nico immediately understood. She was also infected by the aliens, but Zane didn't know how to treat it. Nico immediately awakened a biologist named Julian from the hibernation pod. Bernie reported his every action on the planet to Julian in detail. In just a moment, Julian determined that patient 0 was Bernie. He also found a boron-based virus in his blood. It turned out, boron is a fundamental element for the formation of life under certain conditions. Bernie, who should have known this, had brought the virus onto the spaceship. What's even more serious, this virus spreads through the air. After Julian finished speaking, he took off his protective helmet. From the moment he was awakened, he was also infected by the virus. At this moment, Petra, who was seriously ill, miraculously began to recover. This gave everyone confidence to win the battle against the virus. Just as everyone raised their glasses in celebration, Petra started feeling unwell again. Everyone was shocked and witnessed the power of the boron-based virus. In order to ensure the survival of the people in hibernation pods, Nico decided to exile all the awakened crew members into outer space in order to purify the air inside the spaceship. Everyone agreed. They then went to say goodbye to their families. As the main culprit of this disaster, Bernie volunteered to be the subject of the treatment plan. Julian extracted antibodies from Bernie's body and developed a preliminary antidote. After Bernie received the injection, his abnormal symptoms significantly improved. Just as Bernie felt relieved, when everyone had a way out, Julian picked up the medication and injected it into himself. As the medication entered his body, he immediately felt that something was wrong. A wave of heat spread within him. Julian knew that his experiment had failed. The antidote accelerated the growth of the extraterrestrial virus. For the greater good, Julian handed over his experimental notes to Bernie and locked himself in the airlock. At this moment, red spots appeared on his neck. He pleaded with Bernie to press the button and exile him into outer space. However, Bernie couldn't bring himself to do it. Julian kept insulting him, forcing Bernie to act. After the red button was pressed, Julian was instantly sucked out of the airlock. Bernie didn't give up. He continued researching the antidote. William arrived shortly after, urging him that the exile time had come. Unexpectedly, Bernie actually developed the antidote. Meanwhile, Nico had already gathered everyone into the airlock. Just as everyone was prepared to face death, William arrived just in time. They had just discovered in the laboratory that the extraterrestrial virus was afraid of gamma rays. They only needed to fly to the nearby Sirius to find sufficient gamma rays. The spaceship then headed towards Sirius. They opened the observatory. Everyone stood together, bathing in gamma rays. The virus was completely eradicated. The spaceship's air was also purified. Afterwards, they left Sirius, but there was also bad news. Affected by the side effects of gamma rays, everyone became sterilized. Bernie blamed himself incessantly. Because of his own actions, Julian sacrificed himself. Nico comforted him. If it wasn't for Bernie finding the antidote, everyone would have died. After the crisis was averted, the team members entered hibernation pods. After an unknown period of time, Nico woke up again from her hibernation pod. She noticed a bloody hand hitting her hibernation pod's glass. Nico stepped out of the hibernation pod and saw blood all over the floor. Suddenly, she noticed August. August told her, "There are extraterrestrial creatures hunting humans on the spaceship." At that moment, Nico heard strange noises. Now William couldn't be reached. Fortunately, Cass arrived with weapons. They supported the severely injured August and prepared to evacuate. But just after a few steps, August was captured by an unknown creature. They then found themselves in another compartment, where they found other surviving team members. They formed a small team to hunt down the monsters. But no one knew the monsters had already spotted them. When they reached the corner of the corridor, the last team member was suddenly captured. However, the others didn't notice. The alarm on the spaceship started blaring. Another team member was dragged away, but his screams caught the attention of his companions. Another team member was dragged away for a moment. Cass frantically sprayed bullets down both corridors, but it had no effect. They had no idea where the monsters were, and only the two of them were left as surviving humans. Nico escaped into a compartment. She beckoned Cass to come in quickly. At this point, Cass had already lost her sanity. She was still shooting wildly. Nico pressed the door-closing button, locking Cass outside. The next second, the alien creature hidden in the darkness killed Cass directly. All the team members gathered around Nico. It turned out that it was just Nico's nightmare. The other team members had already been awakened from hibernation. Nico's hibernation program malfunctioned. If she couldn't wake up within 30 minutes, she would suffer brain death. Meanwhile, Nico entered another dream. She was celebrating her daughter's birthday. To wake Nico up, William entered her dream, but Nico only saw her daughter. She not only ignored William's words, but also expelled him from her mind. Just as Nico was cutting the cake, she discovered a hidden red button inside. At this moment, Nico finally understood that she was still in a dream. Suddenly, a massive spaceship appeared in the sky. Nico bid farewell to her family, and then pressed the bright red button. Immediately, she woke up from the hibernation pod. She realized she had entered another dream. This time, it was the biggest air disaster Nico had experienced. Their spaceship collided with a satellite. It was that air disaster where she made the sacrifice of half the crew to save the other half. In the past 10 years, this nightmare has haunted her, constantly tormenting her. This time, she decided to face it bravely. As the spaceship was about to explode, she made the same decision, because in her eyes, this choice prevented total annihilation. It was the wisest decision. Now, the knot in her heart finally unraveled, and she broke free from this nightmare. After waking up, Nico discovered that the spaceship had plotted a new course. She was greatly puzzled by this. It turned out that the hibernation pods of their spaceship had malfunctioned. Now they faced a shortage of food. At this moment, William reported a new discovery to Nico. He found a planet nearby that resembled Earth. Originally, they only intended to find some food to replenish the spaceship, but then William discovered the presence of alien signals. What was even more shocking, there was also a crystalline tree on the planet. Upon learning this news, Nico quickly organized a few team members to land on the planet and commence the exploration. Strangely, the surface of this planet appeared unusually calm, with no visible signs of any living creatures. In reality, beneath this seemingly peaceful land, lurked a mysterious and eerie force, which had already set its sights on them. Deep within the mountains and forests, they finally found the alien signal tower. After careful observation, she discovered a puzzling phenomenon. There seemed to be no trace of animals on this planet, but the signal tower had been standing for thousands of years. It also had subtle differences. compared to signal towers on Earth. It appeared to be missing a few crystalline pieces. Therefore, Nico planned to search nearby. Due to the many tasks at hand, Nico decided they should split up. Team member Sasha stayed behind alone to guard the camp. Nico and Cass went to search for the missing crystal pieces of the signal tower. Bernie Zane went to nearby areas to see if there were any signs of animal existence. Everyone started their tasks as instructed. Before long, Nico and Cass found the fragments of the crystals. The weight of this thing is unexpectedly lighter than paper. While Bernie was reporting the situation to her, he accidentally injured his leg by falling. Nico also heard something unusual from the communicator. She asked about the injury. Bernie said he got pricked by a tree branch. It's not a big issue, but after a few steps, he collapsed in pain on the ground. After lifting his pants, he discovered that his lower leg was undergoing mutation. Zane immediately injected him with an antidote. Bernie screamed out. His entire lower leg turned black. Meanwhile, Sasha, who was in charge of guarding the signal tower, suddenly heard someone calling his name from the signal tower, and that person was none other than his own shadow. Before Sasha could react, he was dragged into the signal tower. Meanwhile, Nico and the others saw a giant pink tree. Under the hallucinatory effect of the pollen, the two started speaking incoherently. They only returned to normal in the evening, but when they returned, they discovered that Sasha was missing. They anxiously called out his name. Meanwhile, Sasha, who was dragged into the signal tower, unexpectedly emerged from another direction. At this moment, Zane came over with Bernie. Nico immediately contacted William to prepare for evacuating this eerie planet. While the group was on their way back, Zane saw something underground chasing them. Nico realized there was danger. She told everyone to run quickly. A giant alien spider emerged from the ground. Sasha was paralyzed with fear, standing still in place. The size of this alien creature exceeded everyone's expectations. Perhaps it sensed the presence of other prey. The giant spider did not attack Sasha. Cass picked up a machine gun and fired at it. Sasha took the opportunity to run over. More and more giant spiders emerged from underground. They started attacking them. Fortunately, everyone successfully entered the shuttle. Nico immediately started the machine and left the planet. In the end, everyone safely returned to the spaceship, but no one noticed Sasha, who was previously dragged into the signal tower, behaving extremely strangely. What's even worse, a small creature managed to sneak aboard and slipped into a gap in the spaceship. After that, strange things started happening on the spaceship. First, William, who was chatting with Nico, suddenly disappeared after a few flickers. Then the gravity system in the entire cabin malfunctioned. Instruments nearby also caught fire. Nico immediately called for other team members. Cass rushed over. As soon as she picked up the fire extinguisher and opened the hangar door, she immediately became weightless and floated in the air, just like Nico, but Cass still managed to activate the fire extinguisher. Right after that, she was hit by the recoil and slammed into the wall. Fortunately, the fire was already extinguished, and the gravity system was restored. Nico immediately checked Cass's injuries. Fortunately, she was fine, while William was still offline. Nico's expression became serious. She understood. The spaceship was once again facing a catastrophe. The team members began inspecting the spaceship's modules and components. They discovered an alien creature. It turned out that it had bitten and damaged some equipment parts, but Javier couldn't repair William at all. He suggested a forced reboot. However, that would erase William's memories. Nico rejected the proposal. When they were at a loss, William suddenly reappeared. Nico greeted William happily. Nevertheless, William suddenly detected a fire on the spaceship. Nico immediately asked the team members to check the exact location. Shortly after, William detected fires breaking out all over the spaceship, but in reality, there was no fire. At this moment, they finally realized William's program hadn't fully recovered. Next, he autonomously initiated the homecoming protocol. The cabin sounded a level 1 alarm, ordering all team members to return to the rest cabin. Nico immediately commanded to cancel the return. William disappeared before their eyes. At this moment, the system automatically separated. William misjudged a cabin as having a fire. Now they had to reassemble all the cabins. If they couldn't complete it within 30 minutes, then they would all die in the vastness of space. Just when everyone was desperate, Nico decided to pilot the spaceship and dock with the main body. The spaceship flew towards the main body at maximum speed. Cass reported the docking situation to her. With Nico's superb piloting skills, the spaceship successfully docked. There were only 7 minutes left until the activation of the homecoming protocol. The team members quickly fastened the connectors between the spaceship and the main body, but an accident occurred. The last connector couldn't be connected due to a short circuit. Nico decisively left the compartment to repair it. She put on her spacesuit and arrived at the location of the short circuit. She pulled out the damaged part. After receiving the signal, they quickly closed the connector, and the spaceship connected successfully. Cass informed her there was only 1 minute left until the space jump. Just after Nico closed the door, the spaceship shook, causing Nico to be thrown out. The safety rope extended tens of meters away. She was extremely terrified, worried that the tether might break. But luckily, the rope was secured to the spaceship. Although Nico was scared, she still reassured Cass that she was okay. However, the next second, the space jump had already started. Nico was left alone in the vastness of space. Meanwhile, the team members on the spaceship were having an intense discussion. Michelle believed that Nico was already dead, but for the remaining people, it was a good opportunity to go back. Cass accused her of being too selfish, and she insisted on saving Nico. In the end, Cass convinced everyone. At this moment, Nico's oxygen was running out. As she was preparing to face death, the spaceship unexpectedly returned. Although Nico was right near the spaceship, the people on the spaceship couldn't see her at all. In the vastness of space, humans were too insignificant. The spaceship flew past Nico. Nico took out a pair of pliers. She removed the oxygen valve from her suit. Then she ignited the oxygen. Using the current from her spacesuit, a blue flame was seen by Cass, who was piloting the spaceship. Nico was then rescued back onto the spaceship. At this moment, the spaceship malfunctioned once again. After the team members inspected it again, they discovered that the spaceship's energy had been used to create exotic matter, and the exotic matter was needed for the spaceship to travel at 3 times the speed of light. William also malfunctioned as a result. August notified Michelle to go and shut off the exotic matter production switch. Unexpectedly, the triggered fire extinguisher destroyed the control panel. It was impossible to repair it in a short amount of time, due to the excessive production of exotic matter by the spaceship. Gravity accumulation became too intense. The control unit would explode in 5 minutes. To prevent the explosion, Michelle forcefully pushed open the particle accelerator compartment. She wanted to trigger the emergency shutdown mechanism, proceed to shut down the program. Cass ordered her to come out immediately, but Michelle knew there was no time left. She pulled out the tube from the particle accelerator. Exotic matter began to flow into the entire compartment, but it didn't work as expected. To activate the emergency shutdown mechanism, the control unit's explosion program didn't shut down, and Michelle started coughing up blood, but she endured the pain and continued to remove the tube. Finally, the explosion program was terminated. Michelle stopped breathing. This selfish woman sacrificed her life at this moment to save everyone on the spaceship. After the system rebooted, everything returned to normal. William also came back online. The team members were grateful that everyone survived, but Sasha's condition became increasingly strange. He often saw another person appearing beside him. That man kept persuading Sasha to accept him. Later, Sasha sought out Dr. Zane and underwent a brain scan examination. The examination results were quite disturbing. There was something spider-like in his brain. Sasha, upon receiving the results, remained surprisingly calm. He even took the opportunity when Zane wasn't around to secretly delete the examination results. On the other side, after several months of research, scientists made new progress. They found a way to communicate with extraterrestrial beings. Several large lamps were arranged in order. They shone on the crystal one by one. Instantly, a change occurred. After increasing the number of lights again, the crystal began to flicker with light. But just as the last lamp was lit, all the surrounding lights went out simultaneously. Suddenly, a glowing entrance appeared. At the bottom of the crystal, the extraterrestrial beings seemed to want to communicate with humans. To ensure safety, the government first dispatched a drone to conduct initial exploration. However, as the drone entered, the signal suddenly got interrupted. When the signal was restored, a human appeared on the screen. Surprisingly, it was the defense minister's son, Sasha. Wasn't he on the spaceship? The defense minister was very anxious. He wanted to send troops for further investigation, but Eric warned that doing so could potentially trigger an interstellar war. Therefore, they decided to send the female deputy to gather information first. As they were putting the helmet on her, she began to experience difficulty breathing. Eric decided to go himself. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he put on the helmet. After everything was ready, he entered the unknown world. He walked through a dark corridor. The entrance behind him quietly closed. At this moment, Eric found himself in complete darkness. But then, Sasha appeared in front of Eric, and then disappeared into the light. Eric followed after him. He had actually traveled back 20 years. At that time, he was still a university student, and his wife, Nico, was sitting below, greeting him. Eric knew that she was not his real wife. He exposed the alien's deception. The fake Nico wasn't angry. Instead, she took Eric to the blackboard, and then handed him a pen. Eric, in four-dimensional space, was able to solve the quantum gauge theory, a world-class problem that couldn't be answered in reality. Suddenly, their daughter's appearance interrupted him. When he turned back after comforting his daughter, the previously written steps had all disappeared. His daughter had also run away. Eric chased after her. In a daze, he left the crystal, and then collapsed to the ground. After waking up, he informed the defense minister about the situation. The aliens were able to communicate using human memories. This method of communication signifies that they are a more advanced civilization. As for the earlier appearance of Sasha, Eric felt it was a holographic projection, but the defense minister didn't believe the aliens' words. He decided to lead the team personally to find answers. As they were preparing to enter, they witnessed a strange scene. Sasha was attacking a man. The defense minister shouted his son's name loudly. The person stopped, turned around and looked at them. At this moment, the extraterrestrial crystal started turning black. Immediately after, a burst of ultrasonic waves attacked them. Everyone was thrown to the ground. Noses started bleeding. Just as the defense minister struggled to get up, the ultrasonic waves struck again, sending him flying away. Suddenly, Harper was pulled into the spaceship. Then the entrance closed rapidly. On the other side, Sasha had been completely controlled. He induced Javier to reveal the spaceship's top secret, which was the Operation Sulfur Island. Javier stated, "The spaceship has a protective coating. During supersonic travel, this coating can transform into a super laser weapon, capable of detonating the entire planet. To deactivate this weapon system, the entire spaceship needs to be destroyed. The precondition is to shut down William, so that they can achieve this." Javier finally noticed something was amiss, but it was too late. Sasha obtained the memories in this way. This is also the scene witnessed by people on Earth. At this moment, the spaceship is about to enter the dark matter region of Canis Major. Nico is personally piloting the spaceship, slowly entering the region. Fortunately, other than the dimness, everything else is normal. Nico returned to the lounge. Suddenly, two beams of laser quickly flashed by the spaceship. August and Oliver immediately reported the situation to Nico. After she arrived at the airlock, outside the window, she saw her husband, Eric. She instantly broke down emotionally, but after calming down, there was indeed nothing outside. Javier, who woke up, had already forgotten about the attack. He took the toolbox and wanted to enter the engine room to work, but his fingerprint had already been used. The person using his authorization was Sasha. At this moment, Sasha rushed out. He took control of Javier. He tried many methods, but none could destroy William. He once again obtained Javier's memories. Subsequently, he disrupted William's system. This caused him great pain. Neurons kept forming new data, but William couldn't manage the spaceship while processing this data. Meanwhile, dark matter from the outside kept infiltrating the spaceship. William is already overloaded. Just before it was about to collapse, Sasha gained his trust, obtained the system's password. He tricked William into shutting down the AI program. Finally, he disabled William completely, using the system password. At the same time, Nico and the others found Javier unconscious. They immediately took him to the medical room. Nico noticed that she couldn't reach William anymore. She noticed that Sasha was also missing. After discussing among themselves, they felt that Sasha's recent actions were highly suspicious. Then they found the deleted medical report. At this point, everyone understood. Sasha had been controlled by aliens long ago. Nico ran towards the control room. Meanwhile, Sasha, at this moment, was trying to access Beauchamp's memories. Nico wanted to stop him, but she found that her palm print couldn't open the door. She could only watch her teammate being harmed. Nico picked up an axe and struck the door. She successfully caught Sasha's attention. Cass, who was hiding in the room, took the opportunity to approach him. She choked his neck. Cass controlled Sasha and brought him to the door. She activated the switch inside the door. Nico took the opportunity to enter. She first dragged the unconscious Beauchamp away. Then she pulled Cass and ran out. However, Sasha immediately closed the hatch. Suddenly, an alarm sounded in their ears. It turned out that the cooling system of the particle accelerator had been shut down. The temperature had reached the critical level. With only 1 hour left until the spaceship explodes, shortly after, radio communication was also shut off. Inspired by Oliver, Nico, through the sewage pipe, contacted Bernie in the medical room, assigned Bernie with the task of cooling the particle accelerator. Then, Bernie put on a protective suit and entered the soon-to-explode compartment. Just as he successfully restarted the cooling system, he was noticed by Sasha in the control room. Sasha quickly shut down the system remotely. This left Bernie bewildered. Bernie tried to open the cooling system once again, but it automatically shut down again. He complained that the machine was malfunctioning. Bernie took out a screwdriver and quickly activated the switch. He punctured the control panel with the screwdriver. Electricity struck Bernie. Intense pain surged through his body. When his companions arrived, Bernie had already passed out on the ground. This time, the system control was completely disconnected. Even Sasha couldn't remotely shut it down, but he came up with a new plan. Sasha found the spaceship's central processing system and used alien technology to modify the system's programming. A dark red area appeared on the control panel. Sasha gave a decisive order and changed the spaceship's course. Meanwhile, Nico, in order to restore the AI William as soon as possible, went to the hibernation chamber and woke up another skilled engineer, Azumi. A few minutes later, Azumi woke up, but Sasha had already sensed her intentions. Nico wanted to use this engineer to regain control of the interstellar spaceship. In response, Sasha issued an order to cut off the oxygen supply to the hibernation chamber. Azumi suffocated due to lack of oxygen. Nico fetched an axe and swung it with all her might at the hibernation pod, but the bulletproof glass couldn't be broken. Azumi lost her life due to lack of oxygen. Nico decided to meet up with the others first, but just then, the spaceship's superluminal engine started. It turned out that Sasha had complete control of the spaceship. He created a new database and steered the spaceship into a dark matter region. Finally, he set the destination to a black hole. He intended to destroy the spaceship through the black hole. Nico also discovered this. She instructed the rest of the team to escape on a shuttle, heading towards Canis Major. Not far from the black hole, Nico decided to stay behind to confront Sasha. As the other team members boarded the shuttle, she went to the hibernation chamber to enter the dream realm and find William, to persuade William to come back online, as they needed him to save the spaceship. But at that moment, Sasha arrived. The two of them immediately engaged in a fierce battle. After Nico ran out of the hibernation chamber, she continued to call out to William loudly. She didn't want to give up on the spaceship. Sasha chased after her, grabbing Nico's neck. Nico managed to break free, but Sasha pushed Nico aside. After a fierce fight, Nico was still choked. A burst of bright light flashed. William came online voluntarily. Sasha was electrocuted and fell unconscious to the ground. Now, the spaceship had entered the gravitational range of the black hole, but without energy, the spaceship couldn't escape the black hole. At a critical moment, Nico speculated on the substance in Sasha's brain, that it could be used as an energy source, and it actually worked really well. The spaceship, powered by Sasha's energy, broke free from the black hole's grasp. The rest of the team had already arrived near Canis Major. Just when everyone thought Nico had died, Nico on the spaceship responded to Cass. The team members laughed happily. Eric, who was on Earth at the moment, was feeling very heavy-hearted. Previously, under the shockwave of the pseudo-phantom, although everyone survived, without a life-threatening situation, they all contracted leukemia, including Eric and Nico's daughter, Jana. This made Eric furious. He loudly cursed before reaching the alien spacecraft. Suddenly, the light door opened again. Harper, who was previously captured, unexpectedly walked out safely. After a series of checks, something like a spider in her brain, Eric was sent to interrogate Harper. She revealed the name of the alien civilization, called Akaya. She also mentioned that inside the spaceship pseudo-phantom, there was a cure for his daughter Jana. Eric was dragged out. Jana's condition gradually worsened. In order to save his daughter, Eric found Harper under control. Following her instructions, Eric carried his daughter towards the pseudo-phantom. Meanwhile, Harper, using her influence, started promoting Akaya's spirit of peace. On the other side, all the team members gathered again. They were about to land on Canis Major. As the spaceship passed through the clouds, a massive alien crystal tower came into view. To avoid alarming the alien civilization, they chose to land in the forest. At this point, the distance to their destination was still 13,000 kilometers away. Oliver was left behind to guard the spaceship. Nico and Cass prepared to go on foot. They walked for a day and a night, and arrived at a mountain range. They then crawled into a cave. The cave showed clear signs of habitation. After careful observation, they discovered the furniture and decorations were quite primitive here. There was no sign of technological content at all. Just as Nico was about to investigate further, the owner of the cave returned. They immediately looked for weapons to protect themselves. An alien slowly walked in. It had a strange appearance. Its eyes were surprisingly large, but its body resembled that of a bat. Nico faced this situation, feeling lost. What was even more astonishing, the alien spread its wings and made strange sounds, as if trying to communicate with them. Despite being filled with fear, Nico gathered her courage and attempted to communicate with the alien. She introduced herself in a friendly manner, but the alien had no knowledge of human language. When Nico tried to approach the alien, it retreated back into its nest. At this moment, a mysterious device nearby suddenly spoke in English. This greatly shocked both of them, but the information it revealed next was even more unbelievable. It was an invention of the Sachian race. They came to this planet to escape Akaya's pursuit, and settled on this planet. Over the past 100 years, it has intercepted all human signals. This planet is called Zakir. It is located 427 light-years away from Akaya. Akaya occupied this place 50 years ago. They placed crystal signal towers. The signals it emits misled Nico, causing the spaceship to arrive at the wrong location. It also warned Nico not to seek Akaya anymore, as they would only bring destruction. William established a connection with this artificial intelligence, and obtained information about Akaya's dominion. Surprisingly, they control 336 galaxies, and this number is continuously growing. What's even more despairing is that Earth is listed as the next target for destruction. Meanwhile, on the spaceship, Sasha was locked up alone. Suddenly, he started convulsing. Zane and Bernie rushed in to check, but Sasha instantly grabbed Zane's neck. It turns out he didn't want to be an experiment. Sasha wanted Bernie to put him out of his misery, to save Zane from being strangled. Bernie ultimately chose to shoot Sasha. Then, they extracted the thing controlling Sasha. After analysis, they found out it was actually a small, infinite energy reactor. William sighed. Their technological level far surpasses that of Earth. Following Zane's suggestion, William rewrote the program for this alien creature, and placed it onto Javier. Afterward, Javier really woke up, and his body was completely fine. Meanwhile, Nico and Cass continued to explore ahead. As they crossed through a jungle, they saw corpses scattered everywhere. Akaya was ruthlessly slaughtering the Zakir people. Nico immediately realized that they must gather all the marked galaxies and unite for a counterattack, but they couldn't fight on Akaya's home turf, because it would take them over a year to reach there. Meanwhile, Earth could be devastated at any moment. Cass suggested evacuating as soon as possible, while Nico wanted to save the surviving Zakir people. Just then, a strange sound came from the small ship they left behind. Oliver looked up. A mind-controlled Zakir person climbed onto the ship. As it jumped off the ship, Oliver rushed to the pilot's seat. He started the ship. In an instant, the flames melted the Zakir person. Oliver successfully escaped the danger. Afterward, Nico decisively ordered William to destroy the crystal tower. Once everything was prepared, they fired the laser cannon. At this point, the resistance against Akaya's invasion began in earnest. William soon encountered something strange. He couldn't shut down his own program software. Furthermore, the program had autonomously changed its appearance. But before William could figure it out, the spaceship suddenly sounded a level 1 alarm. He immediately rushed to Nico's side. It turned out that several pseudo-phantom had suddenly appeared in space. They had planned to initiate superluminal travel immediately. However, pseudo-phantom passed over their heads. Everyone watched the scene, puzzled about the enemy's intentions. Eventually, they realized these ships' target was the Zakir planet. Nico and the others witnessed the Zakir planet turning into ashes in Akaya's hands. That concludes the entire first season of Another Life. How will Nico and the others face Akaya's furious retaliation? And what methods will they use to defend Earth? Can her daughter turn the tide and find safety? This series begins with an alien spaceship landing on Earth, setting the stage for the subsequent events. The protagonist faces various crises during her journey to Canis Major. Yet, she never gives up, leading the team to overcome challenges time and time again. she gradually becomes the backbone of the team. The group discovers the truth behind the extraterrestrial spaceship, a civilization far beyond Earth's dimension, wishing to destroy their homeland. Despite the vast power difference, everyone refused to give up. Instead, they immediately searched for ways to save Earth. Earth is their home, and their roots, so even if it meant sacrificing themselves in the vast universe, they would fight for a glimmer of hope for Earth. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscription.